one leg. Broken by 2 different bullets, in 2 different battles, fighting for a country he loved. That same leg carried the man who almost handed America back to the British. His name is Benedict Arnold, and this is the story of Benedict Arnold that most people never actually hear, the one before he became a traitor, when he was America's greatest war hero. But the leg wasn't his real wound. His real wound came from Congress, a betrayal so personal, so humiliating, that it would push him further than any bullet ever could. December 31st, 1775. A blizzard buries Quebec in darkness. Arnold storms the city walls at the front of his men until a musket ball rips through his left leg. He refuses to be carried off the field, continuing to direct the assault even as he bleeds into the snow, until his men finally get him to safety. Congress hears the story and is thrilled. A general who bleeds for the cause, who refuses to quit Arnold, is promoted to brigadier general, celebrated in newspapers as the war's rising star. A year later, Arnold builds a makeshift navy from scratch on Lake Champlain and fights the British to a standstill at Valcour Island, delaying their invasion of New York by a full year. Arnold believes this proves everything. 2 campaigns, 1 shattered leg, a British invasion delayed by a year. Surely now the Army and Congress will finally give him the rank he has earned. But behind closed doors, Congress promotes officers by politics and state quotas, not by battle record. Arnold has no idea a quieter betrayal is already being decided without him. In February 1777, Congress announces 5 new major generals. Every single one of them is junior to Arnold in rank and service, with less combat experience, fewer wounds, and no battlefield record close to his. Arnold reads the list in disbelief. He has bled for this army twice over, and Congress has ranked 5 lesser men above him without a word of explanation. He writes furious letters to Washington, threatening to resign his commission entirely. Privately, he feels erased, like none of it, the leg, the charge, the blood, ever mattered. To the public, nothing looks wrong. Newspapers still print his name beside words like hero and gallant. Nobody outside a small circle knows how close Arnold is to walking away. Washington personally intervenes, smoothing things over, convincing Arnold to stay. Arnold agrees, but the wound this time isn't in his leg. It doesn't heal. It just goes quiet. In April 1777, the British raid Danbury, Connecticut, burning supply depots. Arnold rides straight into the fight, has 2 horses shot out from under him, and is hailed once again as a hero, this time by Congress itself. The public cheers. Congress finally promotes him to Major General. But they never fix his seniority on paper. Those 5 men still officially outrank him. The wound stays open. Then, in the summer of 1777, a new British army marches south from Canada under General Burgoyne, heading straight for a small New York town called Saratoga. At Saratoga, Arnold's commanding officer, General Gates, strips him of his command days before the fighting starts. Arnold is ordered to stay in his tent and do nothing. October 7, 1777. As the battle rages, Arnold can't stand it. He disobeys direct orders, mounts his horse, and rides onto the battlefield without permission from anyone. He leads a wild, unauthorized charge straight at the Brayman redoubt, the one position holding the entire British line together. His men follow him without hesitation. A musket ball tears through the same left leg again. His horse collapses on top of him, crushing the bone. He is dragged from the field, unable to walk. The British surrender days later. Saratoga becomes the turning point of the entire war, the victory that convinces France to join the Americans against Britain. But General Gates writes the official report to Congress. He barely mentions Arnold's name. The man whose unauthorized charge broke the British line gets almost no credit at all. Arnold spends months in a hospital bed. Surgeons want to amputate, he refuses. His leg heals 2 inches shorter. He walks with a permanent limp for the rest of his life. He recovers just in time to learn that Gates is being praised as the hero of Saratoga in every paper while his own name barely appears at all. In June 1778, the British abandoned Philadelphia after 2 years of occupation. Washington rewards Arnold with a prestigious post, military governor of the city. On paper, it looks like recognition at last. In reality, it's a desk job for a man who can barely walk. Arnold sits behind paperwork while other officers earn glory on real battlefields, and the resentment keeps building. Arnold throws himself into the role anyway, hosting parties, dressing well, mixing with Philadelphia's wealthiest families, some of whom quietly sympathized with the British during the occupation. At one of these parties, he meets Peggy Shippen, 18 years old, from a prominent Loyalist family, who had moved in the same social circles as a British officer during the occupation. In 1779, Arnold marries Peggy. To Philadelphia society, it looks like a glamorous match, the war hero and the beautiful young socialite. Nobody suspects where it will lead. Behind the scenes, Arnold is drowning in debt. He spends far beyond his salary, and starts using his military authority for private business deals, some of them clearly illegal. Pennsylvania officials notice. They formally charge him with corruption and abuse of power. For the first time, public opinion turns, the hero's name starts appearing beside scandal. His court-martial convicts him on 2 minor counts. Washington, trying to be kind, issues only a mild official reprimand. To Arnold, even that gentle rebuke feels like the final insult. Wounded twice, passed over once, publicly shamed once, Arnold makes a decision. If the country he bled for won't repay him, maybe its enemy will. Through Peggy's old connections, Arnold opens secret letters with British Major John Andre. Using a coded name, he offers something no traitor before him ever had access to. His price, roughly $20,000 in the keys to West Point, the fortress guarding the Hudson River and the entire northern half of the war. Subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss what's next. Publicly, Arnold requests command of West Point himself. Washington agrees, instantly trusting his most battle-scarred general with the most important fortress in the entire war. In September 1780, Washington plans a personal visit to inspect West Point and its defenses in person, trusting the arrangements entirely to the man who has already agreed to sell them to the enemy. Once inside, Arnold quietly begins weakening the fort's defenses, moving troops, ignoring repairs, feeding Andre detailed maps of cannon placements and garrison numbers. Major Andre travels in disguise to meet Arnold in person, carrying the secret plans hidden in his boot. On his way back, 3 militiamen stop him on the road. They find the documents. Andre is arrested as a spy. Word of his capture races toward West Point, reaching Arnold just before Washington's own arrival. Arnold has minutes, maybe less, before the truth reaches the officers waiting with him for Washington to arrive. Outside, the morning looks completely ordinary, soldiers going about their duties, breakfast on the table, while inside, one man already knows that ordinary is about to end. He excuses himself calmly, kisses Peggy goodbye, and walks out the door. Then he runs down to the river, toward a boat, leaving everything behind. He rows out to the British warship Vulture, anchored in the Hudson. Minutes later, he's aboard, safe behind British lines, the plot collapsing behind him in real time. Washington arrives at West Point expecting breakfast with his general. Instead, he's handed the captured documents. He reads them in silence, then is said to have quietly remarked, "Whom can we trust now?" André is tried as a spy and hanged on October 2, 1780, near Tappan, New York. Washington had quietly offered to trade him for Arnold himself. The British refused. Even the Americans who hanged him note how calmly he faces death. Arnold is safe, but Peggy is left behind at West Point, alone, facing an army that now suspects everyone close to her husband of conspiracy. Peggy puts on a performance of hysterical grief and total ignorance so convincing that Washington himself is fooled. She's allowed to leave and later join her husband. The British had promised Arnold roughly $20,000 for delivering West Point. With the plot exposed and the fortress never actually handed over, he's paid only about $6,315 in total, a fraction of the price of his own name. Effigies of Arnold are burned in towns across the colonies. In Philadelphia, crowds parade a two-faced likeness of him through the streets on a cart before setting it alight, his name now a public curse. The British make him a brigadier general. In September 1781, Arnold leads a raid that burns New London, Connecticut, his own home region, along with Fort Griswold, where defenders are killed even after surrendering. Word spreads quickly on both sides. American soldiers who once served under Arnold now line up as his enemies, forced to face the general who once led them into battle for independence. But British officers never fully trust him either. He gets rank and pay, but never real command of an army. A traitor is useful, never welcome. In London drawing rooms, hosts introduce him carefully, watching how other guests react. He is paid for his service, invited to formal dinners, and yet always kept at a careful distance, as if loyalty itself were contagious. When the war ends in 1783, Arnold moves first to Canada, then to London, seeking a permanent commission in the British Army. He is quietly, politely, and permanently turned down. He spends his final years in a strange exile, too hated to return to America, never fully accepted in Britain, chasing a status that no longer exists. Even the money he sold his name for cannot buy him peace. He spends what little he receives quickly, chasing a comfort that never fully arrives, as if no amount could settle the debt he truly owed. Benedict Arnold dies in London on June 14, 1801, deep in debt after failed business ventures. According to legend, his last request was to be buried wearing his old American military uniform. Back in America, his name outlives him completely. Within a generation, calling someone a Benedict Arnold becomes the harshest insult in the American language, a shorthand for betrayal that needs no further explanation, understood instantly by people who know nothing else about his life or his battles. The same leg that carried him through 2 battlefield charges for independence is the one detail history remembers least, buried under one single word: traitor. A war hero, twice wounded in the same leg, twice overlooked by the men he saved, who might have ended the war years early, instead becomes its most infamous name, all because no one ever told him he mattered. If Congress had promoted Arnold that day in 1777, would America even remember his name? Tell us what you think in the comments.